So entrepreneurship, what does it mean to me? What are my thoughts on it? I touched on it in the intro, but entrepreneurship is something that I've always thought about. When I was little, I used to, mow lawns, for the people, shovel snow. My mom used to do yard sales in the community, every twice a year, I think. I used to have all my extras of, save up my money to buy baseball cards, and you get duplicates, second baseball cards to try and make a set. I used to try and sell those at the yard sale. So always trying to figure out ways to do something on my own, which was fun. And then college comes and you got to kind of get into, the corporate world like I did. And that's kind of where you settled. But I always, had that itch in the back of my mind of liking to work for myself. I was always in the back of my mind, no matter what, had disagreements in my head with, some ways that the senior leadership would run the business, which always was like, I didn't have enough of a voice in many cases to be able to change it. And then once I did have the seniority at the executive level and the board level to be able to have those kind of decisions, we really got forced into a bad timing that it was a time where everything was regulated in the banking industry. The big downturn just happened. I got into the senior executive positions and there was no room to make decisions other than what you had to make from a regulatory perspective. So really never really got to feel that I could make the changes to a business like I wanted to. My most favorite things in business growing up through my career was going into new or evolving industries that the bank was trying to do, whether it's we're going in to start to do direct marketing and direct lending to dealerships on the auto side, or we're trying to spin off a part of the business at Citibank to sell it. Like those were always the most fun, that entrepreneurial feel inside of a corporate world. So when I left the bank to go start doing consulting, my mind wasn't fully, I'm going to make a living out of this. It was, let's see how it goes and go from there. And then I got the bug and, that's where it's led me. But I truly don't believe my entrepreneurial success would have been anywhere near as it is now if I didn't work in that industry for a period of time. Did I need to work there all 25 years? No, maybe not. But I would have had to work there a pretty good amount of time to understand all of the intricacies and all of the things that kind of make you understand why things are being decided or how they're being decided, which makes it much more effective for me going into my clients and being able to speak at their level, having been in their seat before. So I mentioned we do a lot of work on the entrepreneurship side here at University of Delaware. It's actually where our office is located, just off campus, across from all the sports complexes, which is a lot of fun. But we've gotten to work with University of Delaware quite a bit. On the business side, we do a scholarship for the business analytics major, which is a lot of fun. Get a lot of good exposure there. We have a lot of students that work for us, not interns, but actually working for us during the school year and full-time over the summers. And they have an entrepreneurship school within the University of Delaware that we do a lot of work for. Dee Ridgway, who's one of my partners in the business and one of the original founders, he actually sits on the board of the Horn Entrepreneurship Program at University of Delaware. And we do a lot of work with them, pitch competitions, preparing them, being the investors they present to so they can practice, being mentors to those, who are trying to, make their pitches more desirable when they try to go in and pitch their ideas for new businesses. And I try to speak to all of them to the understanding of, do you understand the industry you're going into? You have a product that is going to work very well, which is great. And a lot of the products these students come up with are fantastic and incredible. But a lot of times they don't understand the business aspect of it, how a business runs, the day-to-day operations, any hurdles that would hurt them on their journey to try and get their product in market. So there's a lot of stuff we try to do to educate them of during school, maybe try to do an internship over the summer or try to get part-time work and in the industry that you want to build your business towards. That way you get kind of an inside look into what's going on. The biggest things in entrepreneurship that people don't understand is, less than 20% of businesses long-term really succeed for a long run from an entrepreneurial side for someone who's just coming out of college. There's a lot of success stories, which is what people focus on, and they chase the dream. right? You see, a Facebook, or you see some of these smaller, AI startups that are very, very successful, but you're really seeing 1% of the market of people are trying to do it. Are you prepared? Do you understand all of the aspects of not just the business environment you're going into, but how to run a business? We see a lot of the students who graduate and start their own business fail because they didn't know how to manage a payroll. They didn't know how to manage their resources. They didn't know how to manage inventory. They didn't know how to manage the day-to-day accounting and benefits that goes into hiring people. There's only so much you can do with 1099s in the long run, because it is unstable when you have people moving in and out because they don't have a set W-2 benefits and employment. So you have to make sure you understand at the end of the day all the aspects if you want to be truly successful. Now, I'm not saying you can't be successful without all of that because it happens, but it's very, very rare. So we do try to impress upon people, and especially myself, when I talk to young people, especially even my kids. I have four children, 2 college age, 2 in high school. That what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to work for yourself? Do you want to work for someone else? What's your ambitions? And then how do you plan for it? Have a plan in place. I mentioned before, don't be afraid of failure. Those failures make you who you're going to be in the long run in your business. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, don't be afraid to fail here and there. Do your research, understand what you're doing, and make sure you have a plan in place, and make sure you have several plans. It's ironic that there's a chessboard here, and this just popped in my head because I was looking at the chessboard. But it is, thinking 3 or 4 moves ahead. If I go this route, what if this happens versus that? How do I react in both situations? Not just planning that everything's going to go as planned. Funding, how are you going to fund it? For me, I've mentioned that my wife had a very, very senior job, so it allowed me flexibility to fail, succeed, but figure out my own way with my own business and find out if this is really what I wanted to do with my life. And it ended up being yes, but I never, ever could have done it without my wife being there to support us, to support me, to give me encouragement, but also stability. So make sure you understand that. You don't want to try and chase your dream and then it doesn't work out, because, it's great to chase your dreams, but it doesn't always work out. Make sure you plan accordingly. Play chess, not checkers. Make sure you have a secondary plan. And if you don't, you could spend 10 years and, then you have to go get a real job in the corporate world. And are you prepared for it? Does your degree in college kind of foster that? What are your experiences that you can really rely upon? And do you need to start from the beginning, or do you have relationships that you've built up? So make sure you're smart about it. Plan accordingly, have plans for any situation that you can possibly work out. Learn from your mistakes, embrace your mistakes, embrace your failures, and learn from them. Don't look at them as like a hurdle or, something you want to forget about, like, oh, I failed there. Right? It's not the same thing. Someone gets fired. Well, learn from it. Why did you get fired? What did you do that really didn't work out well? That could be one of the greatest learning experiences. You take a look at some of the most successful people in the world. You can guarantee they've probably been fired from 1 or 2 jobs a lot of times, and they have been. Kevin O'Leary, Elon Musk. You talked to a lot of those guys of, what didn't work for them in the beginning and what they learned from it. People like that are great to listen to, because to be truly successful, you have to know what it means to fail. Because if you don't know what it means to fail, the first time something goes wrong, you don't know how to react. You don't know what to do, and you panic. And a lot of times when you panic, you make harsh and incorrect decisions. So, always have a plan in place, be mindful, learn from your mistakes, and go from there. And, if entrepreneurship and, starting your own business is what you want to do, don't let anybody stand in your way, but make sure that you're smart about how you're doing it. Don't just think that you're going to jump in, make this incredible, idea, concept, and expect that it's going to work. Because the people you have to sell it to might not believe in it and might not agree with how it would integrate and work for them. Some of the greatest products I've seen just don't work from a business perspective in certain verticals, certain industries, just because it won't interact correctly because of regulatory oversight, because of requirements and, certifications they have that'll be too much of a hurdle. You hear everybody trying to build all this stuff with artificial intelligence and try to sell it in, for example, we do a lot of work in the banking industry and have a lot of banking experience. artificial intelligence is fun and great, but being that it's a self-learning application, it'll never work in certain applications within financial services because it's regulated. It will discriminate because certain categories of that's considered discrimination in the financial services world do perform in specific ways that are true separators. And unfortunately, if you go in with AI, it's going to find those and try to optimize your outcomes. So you have to be able to be advanced in understanding those hurdles, being able to code it into that environment. That's why most of what's out there that's called, artificial intelligence isn't AI. It's machine learning, right? It's guided, it's overseen, it's managed, right? It's careful. So you got to be understanding of what you're doing, to be careful of what you're doing, and understand the market you're going to. An example of, going from a entrepreneurship perspective of what works is I was trying to think about how to expand Predictive Analytics Group, PAG, outside of just what we started for originally in 2013, which was banking. It was trying to get into something different. And I was like, why not do something I really like and enjoy? That would be fun for me. So I said, sports betting was getting big, 2015, 2016. And I said, why don't I try to build a model? I have all this data. I have access to all this data. Why don't I try to build some models for some sports betting? Big ones like baseball, football, golf, the big ones that you had a lot of opportunity to bet. So that's what I did. I started building models on that side and figured out what worked, what didn't work, learned from some failures, of what made sense. And finally, one of them took off, and, to this day still post on a weekly basis. And, we outperform the Vegas lines, pretty heavily, 60 to 65%, for full season every year. And it's pretty fun. So it's a lot. It was a lot of work, but a lot of failures, and a lot of fun. So, that was something that really helped me kind of get into the entrepreneurship side.
And a footnote, I completely tanked and shit the bed on baseball, soccer, golf. Nothing worked. The only thing I really got to work was football, right? And learned that it was, building the model, having a lot of fun with it, but adding that art with the science and understanding the whole realm of how it works, from the kickoff to the final whistle, right? It was figuring that out along the way. And I didn't have as much in that because there's so much volatility with baseball. 162 games wasn't there. Golf, one person, it's not a team. So it was very difficult to pick winners, right? And that was what my models were doing, picking winners. Since then, if I had to go back and do it, I'd learn from my mistakes and just who's likely to hit the top 10, who's likely to hit the top 5. I wouldn't do it the same way, but that failed. Soccer, I just didn't have enough experience and knowledge about overall MLS or, Champions League soccer to be effective of knowing when the model was giving me BS. Whereas at football or baseball, I could. So really where it settled was an NFL, model. And it's been 7 years and it's running strong. And, we have a lot of people subscribe to our weekly newsletter during the season. So that's kind of was a fun thing of learning from a lot of mistakes. Even the NFL model took 3 or 4 iterations before it was worth anything. And now today it's a fun thing that we do. We don't sell it by any means, but we do post it and do a distribution. And it's a fun way to show our capabilities from the analytical perspective. But it's pretty funny because there's a lot of failures. And it was a lot of my time on the weekends and nights that was just like, my wife would be like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm trying to make this damn model work. She's like, give it up. You're useless. Stick to banking. But I didn't. I learned from my mistakes, and it ends up working pretty good. And it ends up being a nice little income on the side that helps pay for my watches.
So that's my kind of take on entrepreneurship. We'll dig in deeper as we go along and we have more podcasts, but I love hearing successful stories. I love hearing, I hate to say failures. I love hearing failures, but I love hearing about successes built off of failure. So what did you fail in and how did that help you be successful in the future? So, put some notes in the comments, some topics you'd like to hear about that we can talk about. I'll try to bring in some entrepreneurs that I know that have been successful. I've had some hurdles along the way and how they've overcome them. And I think it'll be a fun time to kind of hear about that if you're interested. But again, comment, subscribe, and let us know, is it something you enjoy hearing about or is it, something you don't? So it'll be good to hear about that and get some feedback and some ideas to what next, what's the next topic. But, on to the next topic.